Team, welcome back. Day 2 for the continuation of QTP training, batch of November 27th. Let's look at where we stopped yesterday, and we will continue from there on. So what we started doing is taking our baby steps on learning or mastering HP Quick Test Professional. Along with it, the VB scripting portion and the portion of frameworks, automation, procedures and principles and so on. Okay, a lot of things coming your way, but we are right now taking our baby steps. So what we did yesterday, if you remember, team, is we did a simple small record of a specific simple feature of an application. Why were we doing that? To show you how QTP works at a very high level. All right, now what we are going to do today is continue from where we left yesterday and move from there on. All right, now let me quickly open up the application and we'll start going. Meanwhile, team, if there are questions that you have or had from yesterday that didn't get resolved, that are relevant to the training that we have done so far, the sessions that we've done so far, please use the chat to start putting them so that I can start looking into it. Okay. Alright, team, sorry. So let's get going. So now, let me quickly see if I can answer any questions before we get going. Yes, yesterday's query, description of test cases. I'll come to that. And then I will also look into the question of we need to start QTP, set record setting, and then launch the web application to record our operation site, right? So I've showed how to do a record earlier, okay? Just open QTP, open a new test if you want to, okay? Make sure that you've saved your earlier test. Click on record, have your browser open, or let QTP open the browser, and then start recording, okay? Now, what we have done is recording some random steps of what we believe it is that we could start to use with. Now, unless we go in a very structured manner, there is no method to the madness about how we want or wish to go about achieving various results out of the automation. So what we need to be doing is, number one, identify very specifically what is it that we want to do. Okay, once you identify very specifically that this is the scope of activity that we will perform, these are the steps that are needed to perform that activity, this is the set of input that is needed, and this is the expected output, that becomes a test case. Okay, test case is a combination of one or more logical steps which basically describe a functionality of the application that any user may typically go through as a process of executing a feature or a functionality of the application. Okay, so for a given test case, you could have inputs, you could have outputs, you could have different steps into it. Okay, for example, in this case, what we are doing out here is a test case. Is it a very detailed test case? No, because we have a lot of ambiguity. For example, enter expense values. Which expenses? There are so many expenses out here. Which income? There are so many incomes out here. How do we do the verification? What is the right formula to be able to calculate? All of those things need to get specified to be able to do that. Create a very standard test case. The only reason I kept that is we logically can think through some random values and a few of those fields and start working with it. Okay. Now, what happened yesterday? When we did a record, we generated a test having a specific code that got generated in the expert view, and we also saw a place called as object repository. And I mentioned that object repository is a way that QTP identifies and answers the where portion of the question. For automating, it needs to answer those two W's, what and where. What is it that we wish to do? Where is that object located? The way QTP, so going forward on the same concept to expand and explain, the way QTP stores objects or identifies it is that number one, on the application, which is the application team, here is the application. It is there in a browser for us. It will identify the objects as a specific type. Okay. Object class or object type is basically used to identify what type of an object is it. Is it a cell phone? Is it a car? Is it a human? Or is it a house? And so on. So the general description or how you can group a specific object is what you use to identify that, number one. Okay. So you have an object class. And then there are properties that are used to identify that object. There are additional properties that are used to describe that object. Okay. Now, if you notice here, each of this in a tree structure is representing objects team. Okay. Budget calculator : free. Do you see this first one? Okay. Then there is another one called budget calculator free and so on. For each object, if you look at, there is a name that is given here, out here. Do you see this? This is called as a logical name that QTP automatically generates when it does a record. Okay. This logical name is a name that QTP automatically generates when it does a record. So for example, if I am in a new place and I'm trying to understand what different areas of this place are, I will use different landmarks of those places, and I will try and associate that, okay, this is there in the northeast corner, or this is there in the southwest corner, or this is the store that will give a name in the mall and something. The name that QTP, the tool is assigns automatically when it does a record, when it identifies an object, is called as a logical name. Okay, so that is the first one that you see. There is a name to an object. There is a class to an object. Okay, class describes what type of an object it is. Where does that object belong? Okay, is it a home? Is it an office? Is it a cell phone? Is it a car? And so on. And then there are description properties for it. So what do objects have, team? Objects have the following. Okay, let's assume that this is my object. Okay, object has a specific name given to it. Let's say XYZ. That is the name. Why is a name important? A name is important so that you can refer to that object by calling that specific name. It's a unique name to which you can call the object. You're not identifying it by it, but it's just a reference or a call to that object. Then objects have properties, right? Some of the properties are used to identify that object. Some are the other description properties into it. Correct? Then we have the methods that we can perform on the objects. Methods are depending on the type of the object, what is it that you could do. All right. Then there is a third thing called child objects for an object. Child objects are basically that an object can contain many other objects. For example, if I talk about a home, okay, I'm not the best drawing person out here, but I'm trying to do some kind of a justice, okay. So if I'm talking about a home out here, all right, then we have different objects within the home. The home is an object, okay. Let's say that the name I give to my home is, let's say, my home, okay. I call it as my home. Within my home, the master bedroom is an object. It is of different class, okay? And within my master bedroom, there is my chair, let's say, okay? So I have my home, that is the name of the object. Then in that home, there is a master bedroom. In the master bedroom, I have a chair. I can have a table also in the master bedroom. I can also have a bed in the master bedroom. What is this chair, table, bed, and so on? Different objects. They belong to a different class. Each of them belong to a different class. I can have two chairs, okay, same class but different objects itself, correct, and so on. So you can have this kind of a combination where you have one or more objects represented within one object, right? So to identify an object, you use the identification properties. Once you've identified it, you use some properties, you use a name to call it, to refer it, and that is a logical name. When QTP records, what it does is it takes one of these identification or descriptive properties and gives that name to the logical name of the object, all right? And then it records what is the method that we have performed, and it stores that in this text, in the code out here. And that is what has been done out here, if you look at it, okay? What you see here is a combination of object and then the method. The first portion for any line, if you notice, is there is an object into it and then there is a method into it, okay? So the whole thing where it says browser.page.webedit blah 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 is a reference to one specific object. That's my object. And then the portion where I'm saying set 250 is a reference to a method. Once you understand the concept of how the object is written and how the method is written, things will become extremely easy for us to move forward. Okay, that's a fundamental foundation block that I've always tried to explain, which needs to be mastered. Okay, so let's say if I need to refer to the chair that is there in my bedroom, which is in my home, correct? How do I write? I'll say that there is a chair and the name of the chair is, let's say, C1, my chair, whatever. Okay, where is it? It is there in my bedroom. Okay, and the name for the bedroom is my bedroom MB1, okay, or I'll say as M1, which is there in my home, and the name for that home, let's say, is H1. Okay, so my home is a type of an object, H1 is the name, MB is a type of an object, M1 is a name, C is a type of an object, C1 is the name. Similarly, out here, you will see a similar representation. Okay, browser is a type of an object or a class of an object that is there here. Budget calculator :space free is the name of that object, and that is out here. If I change this name, this will change here. So in this context, the way QTP has identified this specific application is, it said that this whole portion is my browser. Inside this portion, I have a page, a web page inside this portion. And inside the web page, I have an object. Okay, so to get to this object and do some operation on it, first QTP identifies the browser, then the page, and then the object itself. Okay, what you see here is the browser. What you see here is the page. What you see here are the objects within that page. Okay, so this name that is given out here is referring to that browser object. So I could change that name to what I feel as comfortable. So I can call this as my browser, or even more, my IE browser. Now notice what will happen to the code. This is the VB script portion team, which we will get into. We are trying to understand the blocks of it. Now we will understand it more. Okay. happen when I go forward in this code. Okay, so I change this to my IE browser, and you would see once I tab or move out of here, the name out here is changed. Within my IE browser, what do I have? I have one object under that, and that object is of a class page. And then there is a name out here. Let's say this is home page. I'll call this as home page. Okay, and then it will change that out here. Under home page, there are different objects called calculate, job, tuition, and so on. Okay, we have not yet come to the identification of that object still. How are those identified? We will come to it. But how is this constructed is what we're looking at. Okay, now the way QTP is going to work is when you start to do a record or run, QTP does this. Oops, 1 second, please. Does this following thing. Okay, it takes the identification, the class, the parent object. If this is a child, page is a parent, and browser is the parent of that, and stores those details in this object repository. What we do with it, it stores it in the code. So it adds an object to the repository. What we have to do with that object, it puts that in the code out here. Okay, so unless these two are in sync, there is no proper way that they may work together well. All right, team. Any questions on this concept so far, please? All right, let me look into say a few questions and then we'll go. Okay. The change browser name is going to be permanent. Yes. What is smart identification? We'll come to it. If I change object's name in expert view, does it get changed in object repository too? No. So the way the code is going to work is this way, team. Okay. When I record, I said it will capture this in the object repository and it will store what we do in the code. When I do a run, it will try and execute the same concept in a specific manner. Now let me hit a run key. Run is going to execute this test. Okay. What you see here is something called run results, which I'll explain in a second. But right now I just said run. Now what operation we did when we did a record is the same operation that will get repeated when we do a run. Now what has happened is QTP executed the code back, and whatever we did, where we entered 250, where we entered 350, and we clicked on calculate, that got repeated. Why did that get repeated? Because we gave an instruction to do it. If you remember, I said one of the most important criteria for this to happen is to give an instruction that this is what we need to do. Okay. The way this works is the first thing QTP will do is find out if there is a browser called my IE browser in the object repository. It will come here and it will see if it is there. Then it will try and take the object details or properties and see if the object is visible or is it even open out here. Once it sees that, then it goes to the next portion. That is the separation dot out here. It says page, home page. It comes here and sees if there's a home page. Once it sees this properties, it will go and identify the page with those properties. Then it will look at what are the objects that are there within that. If I'm saying web edit, it will come here and see if there's something called web edit. There is a class of the object and then the name of the object dot blah blah blah. At the end is the method. What is it that we need to do? Okay. Now, what we have done by a record is we've generated a specific set of code. You could expand this code and now take it forward into a more strong manner. What have we done? I've taken a tuition, I've taken a job income, and I clicked on calculate. What if I also want to put, let's say, food, and I want to add some savings into it? and then click on calculate. How do I do this? So the first thing that I need to do is I need to add these objects to the repository and then write the code for it accordingly. All right, team, give me 1 second. All right, team, sorry. So if I start recording, it will continue to do the same structure again. But I want to do my own code, and this is how you need to do. The way we have performed so far, I've put those steps here. Open QTP, open a new test, update record and run settings, start the record process, manually perform the above steps, stop the record, save the test, run the test. This is how we do it typically. Now we're going to do a different process altogether, and this is the process that we're going to focus for the next few sessions. What we're going to do is same again. Open QTP, that is standard. Open new test, that is also standard always. Okay. Now what we will do is open the application under test, or AUT. Okay, short form for that is AUT. Next, what we will do is open the object repository within QTP. Okay. 5 is add the objects from AUT into the object repository. Okay. 6 is write the VB script code to automate the above steps. Okay. 7 is save and run the test. How is this different from what we have shown here, team? Standard automation, advanced real-time automation, right? These steps is basically to say that we will not perform the record and run. QTP gives you that feature, but we will go more advanced into something more significant. I have not shown those results deliberately because I don't want to focus on it. Okay. Now, how am I going to do that? First, new test. Correct? That is what we said we needed. Now, let's give it our own name. So I'm going to say save as and give it our name. So let's say this is data-driven framework 1. That's what I'm going to call it. Okay. Now, this is a blank test. If I go to the resources and open object repository, it is blank. If you see, there's something called as test objects. Okay. Then under this, there is also something called as checkpoint and output objects. I have explained checkpoints and output objects extensively in the recorded topics, please. And I've told you how you could use the same thing without using checkpoints, using VB script also with it. Okay. Why we can do the same thing with VB script. What QTP, HP as a company did is they tried to make QTP as a very user-friendly tool. So if someone does not know programming, that is still fine. They could still use QTP and its advanced features without any issue. Okay. That is why you'll see so many features here. However, you have your strength when you master the art of that language as VB script. Okay. Otherwise, you are a tourist going around a new country called QTP with a translation book in your hand, or with a translation by your side. Or once you do your VB script, you mastered. Now you are almost like a local out there. Okay. Now, what I need to do is add the objects from the application into the repository. What does it mean? I'm saying QTP, when you do a record, when I do a record, you understand and store those details for the objects. Now, without record, can you please do that? For that, there is an option called this add objects to local repository. Do you see this thing? A cube with a plus sign. Click on that. What QTP will do is it will minimize the QTP and it will convert your mouse icon into a hand icon, like a hover icon. You may not be seeing that using this go to training session, but once you start practicing, you will see that happen. If I click on anything else, it will try and add that object if it recognizes that. Is this what I want to add? No. In that case, what you need to do, team, is you will need to be able to point to the correct object. To do that, what we will do is first cancel this, minimize everything, open up QTP, open up your application, just keep these two besides one another. Okay, that way it is very easy. Add objects to local and then add the object that you want. Tuition is the object that we want to add. Click on it and say OK. What QTP now shows you that, hey, you have tried to add this object, which is a web edit object. See, everything will come so clearly to us now. Web edit is a class of an object. What is a web edit? A field within a web page that you could edit, that you could change the value in. That is a web edit object theme. Okay, page is this, browser is this. So there's a browser, there is a page, there is a web edit. But what about this web table tuition? What QTP does is it tries to also identify the additional objects that it sees in the application, and sometimes these objects are organized in a table manner, and that's a web table. Okay, most of the times when you do your add to a repository, it will show you this, but when you add it, it might ignore it. Why? I don't need to go and tell you that. Go to my home, go to my master bedroom, go to the northeast corner or the farthest right corner in the room. Then there is a brown chair there or a brown table, and then bring my laptop from there, right? I can just say that go to my room and get the laptop from there, which is there in my home, right? So you could skip a few identification levels. That is what QTP will do when you add it. So if I say OK, what QTP does is it adds all those objects and it puts those descriptions and so on. What you should do now is change the logical names so that it is more meaningful for you. What is this? It is a class browser, and you will also see the icon for it. At this time, let's change the name of this to something that is easy for us to identify. I'm going to call this as IE. All right, IE. So that's it. That's the name. And under that, there's a page. So I'll call this as page 1. That's the name I'm giving it. This is the web edit object. Do you see this icon? ABC. This is the icon that is signifying a web edit field. A field within the web page where you could enter a value that you could edit. Alright. And there are other details that we will be coming to later on. Now what you did is you have added one of the object into the repository. Is this enough for us? Not necessarily. We may need more than one object. Now click on this plus sign and again see, this is what will show. Minimize everything, open up the application, open up QTP besides it and add the object. Isn't this more time consuming than what we did as a record? Yes, but then why are we trying to do it this way? Because you are the master, you are in control of what and how you want to do. And I'll show you why. Okay. So now what we did is we added job. Okay. And then let's add also one more object called calculate. That's it. 3 objects for now. What we have done is we finished adding the objects into the repository. Next, what we will do, write the VB script code to automate the above steps. Okay. So now comes your details of the test case. Okay. So let's say that I'm a very organized person. Before I do anything, I want to take notes of it. What is it that I need to perform? What are the details of this test? This is one test that I need to automate. We're just playing around right now. Towards the end of this project of Data-Driven Framework 1, you will see how we arrive at a very detailed level explanation of these things. Okay. So here I am trying to execute a basic test case. And as part of this execution of a basic test case, what I'm doing is enter a value of, let's say, 450 into tuition. Okay, then enter a value of 550 into job income. Click on calculate button. What are these, team? These are actually my test case steps. This is what we should ideally put out here. Okay, when I said enter expenses and incomes, this is the detailed level of it. Now this becomes a more concrete test case, team. Okay, so we have very specific expectations that we're trying to meet out here. Now, when I write this, QTP does not understand plain simple English statements as is. It needs to understand this in the way it can identify and execute those specific areas. To do that, it needs to execute it in a VB script manner. These are our comments, our English statements that you and I understand. Once I put this, it is easy for me to write code against it. So for comments, use Control M or click on this icon. Okay. What happens if you do not do that is, and try and save this test. Okay, I'm going to try and click on save. You will see that QTP starts communicating back to you saying that, you know what, you tried to do something, but I cannot understand what you're trying to do. This is not VB script, this is something else, I don't understand. And it starts throwing issues for you. Okay. Resolving these issues and trying to write the correct code is the process of mastering this whole tool, team. All right. Now, to put this, you put them as comments. Okay. You could click on this icon here, or oops, you could use Control M. What that will do is it will say that, you know what, this is just a comment. It is not a VB script code. And hence, you start that line with apostrophe, and then automatically it gets commented. Okay, save this code. Now you see this information? No, it is disappeared. So now the first step is execute a basic test case. This is what we're trying to do here. Okay, so I'll call this test case details. Okay, this is what test case name, let's say, is execute a basic test case for Chase student loans. Now we will enter a value of 450 into tuition. This is my step number 1. This is my step number 2. Okay, this is my step number 3. How will I perform step number 1? Here is where I need to give an instruction to QTP, saying that QTP, go to this application, go to this field, and then enter 450 in here. So the first portion about it is the where part. Answer or put the details for the where part. To do that, keep your object repository on the side, and now it will become very easy. The first thing you do is write the name of the class for that object. What is the name of the biggest parent class in it? Browser. Say browser, open brackets. As soon as I open brackets, automatically IE comes up. Why does it come up? Because there's only one browser with that name IE in the object repository. Close the bracket. Now, through this, we are pointing to the browser. As soon as I say dot, you will start seeing the various other things that we can perform on it. The different methods that we can perform. I can do different operations on the browser itself. This brick icon with this motion sign signifies what I want to do on that browser. In this case, I don't want to do anything specific on this browser. I want to go to a child object of it, and the name of that or type of that is a page. Do you see this? So select the page, and automatically, as soon as I open the brackets, you will see PG1 coming up. Why is PG1 coming up, team? Because it finds only one page. Dot. On this page now, different method. So depending on the type of the object, you could perform those methods. Okay. Every object class is different. So once you know which class it belongs to, you can change how you behave in that object with it. Okay. In that page, I go to the child object. I have two child objects, web button and web edit. So if you look at web edit is the one that I need to point to. At this point, I will open the brackets and you would see job and tuition. Two options for you. Which is the one you want? You want this. How do you know that tuition is referring to this? That is how we named it in the object repository. However, you have an option to go and verify that by using something called as highlight in application. Go to your object repository, select the object and click on highlight in application. And you would see that specific object getting highlighted. And that basically confirms the fact that yes, it is referring to the correct object. Now select the object. What you have done so far, team, is you have identified the object, the where portion. Now you need to identify what you want to do. What is it that you want to perform, team? I want to enter a text into that specific web edit field. So if you click on each of these different methods, you would see a description explaining what is it that this specific method would perform. Capture bitmap takes a screen capture of that specific object as a PNG or BMP image. Drag or click. Do I want to click on it? No, I want to enter text. So which is plausibly something that will enter text. If you're not sure, team, do a simple record, get that information and put it here. We will do a set. What set will do is it will help me take a specific text and put it in there. What is the text that I want to put? 450. All right. So this 450 is the value that I want to put and set is the method and this is the object. So that is how you go about writing the VB script code. Very basic code, but that's how you start writing. Now, to do it again for the next one, you repeat the same process. The reason I'm showing you this is I don't want you to do a record. I want you to perform and repeat these steps like I'm showing you. Okay. I want you to start getting a good hold of the practice of what we're doing. The first session yesterday was a cakewalk. What we're doing today is still easy, but as we go along, it will get very complicated. It will get very complex. So you will need to follow up, team. Okay. We'll get into the depth of programming very soon. Now, job, I said 550. So each step, I'm explaining what is it that I'm going to perform. Okay. Finally, browser IE dot page whatever dot web button. Did you see? Different type of an object. And here there was only one web button in this list, so it automatically picks that up. What will I perform? Click on it. Now I have returned the code. Once I have returned the code, you want to run and see if it works correctly or not. So do a simple test and see if it works correctly. I'll come to the test results for you later, team. Do not worry about that for now. Okay. Remind me in case I don't come to it later for any reason. Okay. Now we have generated certain thing. Okay. So this whole process of doing this, team, is your VB script. Now, I know I wanted to go more deep into parameterization, a lot of other things, but we will get there. I'm not in a hurry right now to get there immediately, but I want to definitely focus on a couple of more things before I end this session today. What I'm going to do is, shall we talk about parameters very quickly, team? I know there's just 10 minutes left, but we need to do this. Okay, let me see. The free video showed a param keyword. Why is it not visible here? Param keyword. Shalmali, I don't know what you're referring to. Which param keyword? Where can you tell me where? Are you saying object repository or are you saying VB script or where is it? For 450, why you did not enter brackets? Okay, so we will come to the options of how methods work as functions, how you send inputs to them slowly in the next few sessions, team. For now, I'm just explaining the basic concepts. So why I didn't enter the brackets here and so on for different methods, we will come to it. Okay. what you need to understand is the concept where I have the where portion out here, the what portion out here. That is the most important one. Okay, another question. I entered 450. How come there is 550 on this application? So this is an application where whatever number I enter and I hit a tab, okay, it's not doing it, but when I click on calculate, it automatically changes that to 543.00. When I click on calculate, it is automatically put in the decimals. That is what the application is doing. It is not QTP that is performing it. All right. No, record and run. Then record and run, is it? Oh, okay. I don't know. I'm not a master of record and run, but which one? I'm not sure. Which is a param thing you're referring to? Not sure about it, but could be something that we could easily ignore. We already have the browser open when we entered value for tuition. Do we need still to? Okay. So now comes the additional portions. Okay. Let me give you a 5-10 minutes quick overview on a few more things, then we'll go forward. Now, if I have this browser closed and I try and run this test, now what will happen? Let's see. It is QTP is taking longer than usual to execute this. Number one, right? You will see this yellow arrow pointing to the current line where QTP is trying to run or execute. At this point in time, you will see that QTP is unable to execute this step. Why is it unable to execute? Whenever QTP faces an issue, it starts to tell us that, you know what, there is some kind of a challenge with what we are doing. And then it throws an error and tells you that, you know what, I give up. There is a specific reason this is occurring, and this is what I found. Depending on the timeout settings we give, it waits for a certain amount of time and then starts to throw the errors. Okay, so those errors are very important for you to look at the details of it and try and identify the source or the root cause for an issue occurring. Then you can go and fix that issue. Okay, so it's still continuing to do that. By now it should have thrown it. I think it's by default a 60 seconds timeout, which I believe has changed. If I'm okay, let me see. Application is not open. Correct. The reason is application is not open, but how do we arrive at identifying that is very important. It is still trying to execute. By now it should have thrown the error saying that the object is not visible and so on. So team, the concepts of objects, the properties, the methods, object repository, VBS script, adding those objects to local, each of these things, as I explained, you should try and put them into your head as we go along. Okay. Now comes up error saying that run error. Run error is basically a way for QTP to communicate back to us and say that, you know what, something is not correct, something is a problem. And it tells you what is the problem, it tells you where is the problem occurring, and it also gives you some tips and other options. At this point in time, I have the option to stop the test, retry that step, skip that specific step in the code, or go into a debug mode. We'll get into the debug mode and a lot of other things towards the day 3 team, but I just want you to identify that, focus on the message that is coming. Cannot find the tuition objects parent, i.e. class browser. See, it explains everything. It says that it's not saying it cannot identify just the tuition object. It's saying it cannot identify the tuition object's parent, which is called IE. That is the name I gave, class browser. Verify that the parent properties match an object currently displayed in the application. The browser itself is not present here, and hence it is not able to execute that. And that is why it throws an error. So at this time, if I stop, then what I need to be doing is enter that as the first step. So my actual step number 1 is supposed to be open IE and go to the web URL. Now, why is this in different formats and so on? If I try and say the same issue like earlier, expected statement, this is a comment, so you put that as a comment. Okay, so this I will move it as 2, this is 3, this is 4. Okay, now let me quickly write it. So the VB script statement, a command that will tell me or tell my system to go and open the browser is basically systemutil.run. Okay, systemutil.run. The structure is very similar to our QTP basic statement where we have an object and we have a method. Where part and then the what part. This is the object, how we identify the object, and what we do on it, the method. Similarly, systemutil is referring to our system utility functions or programs that are there in our system. Okay, that is the object portion. Run is the method that we can perform on it. All right. So not only does QTP help us interact with browsers, but also with our system, and that is why sometimes the protection level is necessary to be turned down to access it. Systemutil.run. Now I can give those additional parameters where I say run which application, iexplore.exe, comma which URL, and now I can specify the URL for that. Control C, Control V, and so on. So what this is doing is this piece of code team is now basically saying when we launch the code, execute or run launch Internet Explorer, iexplore.exe is the executable file to launch Internet Explorer. Okay, that is a command that I need to use. And then this is the URL that I wanted to go. At this point in time, if I execute the code, you would see that yes, this code will now open up Internet Explorer and it will navigate to that browser. But at this time, I got a different error. And this was a deliberate error. I made a purposeful error somewhere. So we will come back tomorrow in the next session and try and fix this error thing. We are almost at 6. So I just want to make sure that I focus on a few questions that are important from what we've done so far and answer them. So any specific important questions on the session that we've done till today, yesterday and today, please let me know, please. Karthik, I'm a QC admin. Can you provide support to me? No, I cannot, Srikanth. I don't provide support, but whatever question you have, you can send an email to my team. They will try and help you out with it. Auto-generated code was something like winedit param-tuition.set. Okay, okay. So Shalmali okay, this is the question that you had, param-tuition.set. I remember that word param long time back, but I was not sure. The word tuition or the word calculate or the word job and so on are picked up by looking at specific code behind the scene of this application, and that's your HTML code. So if I go here, tuition, okay, this name for that object has been taken and captured here. If this name was different, it would have captured it differently. Okay, so the param tuition that you saw was the name that was there in that application. So it, whatever is there in HTML code for that application, it comes. I believe that param tuition and so on was there for the mortgage calculator application. Okay, we will explore more details into this thing as we go along. Can you please explain when QTP uses descriptive properties to identify objects, or it can identify them using logical name, for example? Okay, QTP always uses properties to identify. The way QTP works, team, is this. Okay, let me try and explain this to you. Okay. Very important concept. The way QTP works is this. 1 second, please. I'm just trying to get that highlighted. Is first it will see browser IE, page PG1, web edit tuition. Then it will take those properties and then it will go to the application and see if there's an object present there. Once it has an object present there, then it comes back and says what it has to do. And then it goes about, now that it has identified the object, performing that out there. Okay. Okay. This is the next question. Can you show the test results? Okay. This is the results of the test that we did. Okay. When we do automation testing, team, we have two portions. One is automation. The other is testing. Testing is the whole focus of finding defects and ensuring that an application is defect free. Okay, that is the testing portion. Automation is the portion of performing the entire test itself. 95% of what we do in this entire training program is to learn and master the art of automation. Testing is a much simpler job towards automation when it comes to it. It is how do we do results, how do we report them, and so on. This is basically giving you those details about how the test ran and so on. We will come to the depth of this at a later point. In fact, we will get to a very detailed level report generation of our own customized results when we go forward. All right. Okay, let me see and take a couple of more quick questions. Okay, so if you have questions on descriptive programming, there is already a free video that is there on YouTube. Go to my channel, youtube.com/QTP-elearn. In there, you will find a free video on descriptive programming. It's a very, very nice video, a detailed 1-hour session. You should watch that. Let me see. You would next class and which videos to watch before. Okay, so before next class, you don't have to watch any videos. Just watch those day 1, day 2, day 3 from any of those previous sessions that I told. That's about it. But after the next session, I will guide you. The next class team will be most probably either the 3rd of December or the 4th. I want to give enough time so that every one of you has registered, you have installed QTP and are ready to practice parallelly as we go along. All right. Let me see. If I'm using Chrome, no. See, the name here is the name that I am giving. I can say IE or even I can say IE1 or whatever I want. It is my name. Okay. So you can give your own name, logical name. You could decide. Madhu, what is the right time to contact the team for related questions? Okay, so team, any questions? There's nothing like a right time or wrong time. I have my team sitting both in the US and in India, so you can contact them, send them emails or call them. They will try and address your issue. Okay. Let's see. If IE window is already open, can I capture multiple objects to object repository at once in the page? So how can I capture multiple objects? Yes, you could capture multiple objects also into it. Remind me tomorrow, please, Ranjit. I will in the next session I will address that. How can we capture multiple objects at the same time? I think that we're going to use it either way. All right. What is warning in the results page? Let's come to it later. This is a very simple thing. Okay. This is not a complex thing at all to dig into and deep in. It's a very self-explanatory thing. It is just that we need to focus on the preliminary areas. This results thing we can come back anytime. We don't have a session tomorrow. The session is, as I told you, I will communicate to you as we go along. All right. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for attending the day 2. I'll see you back in day 3 then. Take care, everyone. Thank you so much. Bye now.